Hey everybody, I'm Jourdan.
And I'm Jeff.
And this is Open Spaces. If you have been tracking along with us, then congratulations. You have made it through 4 episodes.
Give yourself a pat on the back.
Our whole
Saga.
dating saga. And today's episode is the last installment of just this intro series of allowing you guys to get to know us a little bit.
Just a reminder, in episode 1, we shared all of our dating, and we got to this place that I shared my big struggle is with same-sex attraction, and I dropped that bomb on Jourdan in episode 1 in our dating. And then in episode 2, I dove into what that looks like for me to walk in that struggle. Episode 3 is Jourdan sharing more of her background and her history and before we started, all through our dating. And then episode 4, what we just did was talk through a lot of our tumultuous up and downs, breakups, back together, but ultimately landed on we are now engaged. And that's where we're picking up today. So welcome to Open Spaces.
So we just got engaged at your dining room table. And
super romantic.
It was a very special moment though for us.
It was.
And kind of launched us into a new season of our relationship. And so we had continued counseling separately.
Yeah.
Up until that point. So we got to now come back again together and continue with getting really helpful therapy through our relationship. And what was important to note about this season was that you had now opened up to a lot more people about your whole story and, our relationship.
And I had guys I was walking with, I was in ministry. So if I was on the guys that I was working closely with, I told. And I was like, hey, you need to know this about me. And so I started finding healthy rhythms
You're really bringing your whole life into the light.
I was trying to be like, we always said compartmentalizing. I had for so long in my life, I compartmentalized, but now it's like all moving together into a healthy new rhythm. And you too, you had brought a lot of other people in on the journey.
Yeah.
And your friends. And
also you had told my sister,
yes,
previously as well at some point, I think during one of our breakups, and she and I are very close, and you and her were also very close.
We got very close. I love her.
Her big, the thing that she likes to say is that God prepared me for you by giving me her as my sister.
Yes.
Because you're basically
she also likes to say that I'm
same form.
Your husband, but she's my soulmate.
Yes, she does. But anyway, anyone who knows her understands that. But if you don't, she's basically Jeff in a female form in a lot of ways. So y'all were really close, but I was thankfully able to talk to her also.
Yeah.
And when we were broken up and everything. So there were more people.
But then I also had told your family. I remember we were with your family in their living room, and I told you have 2 brothers. And again, just kind of recapping, Jourdan's family is very manly, and they do the manly things, and
we have a new understanding of what it is to be a man now.
We're
but we can say
again, Jeff comes in and bursts the bubble.
Sure.
But I told them, and they were so loving and accepting, and just it was amazing to get to share with them. So like everyone in your family now knows, my family knows through the journey. So we head towards a short engagement.
Yes. We were engaged for 2.5 months.
2.5 months. And then it's our moving towards our wedding. And the week of our wedding, I just remember anything that you want to talk about it too, but I just remember the week before just a moment that I was like, what we haven't talked about and really dove into was our physical intimacy.
Right.
And so let's hit on that for just a second. So people that are going, okay, you've talked a lot about Jeff, you've talked a lot about same-sex attracted. Are you interested in being with a woman? Is that something that you feel like you can do? And the answer is, no, I'm not interested in being with a woman. I always say I would not be married if it wasn't for you, because we had a connection that was way deeper for me than physical intimacy. And that led me to desire you in a different way. You grew up differently than I did. Your past was different than my past. My past was full of a lot of history, is what we'll say. Sure. And you wore the purity ring, and you were not as explorative. Is that the right word? Can we just say that?
I was a virgin. Let's just say
Yeah,
that.
let's just say that. You're a virgin. We are in our dating, we're kissing, but it never really it always in my mind felt like confusing even when we're kissing, because I was like, I don't understand how this is going to go any further, and like but it was just a lot of confusion like through dating. However, we get back together in our
The
last
last
round
time, yeah.
leading up into marriage, and I had said to you, I think in this round I don't even want to kiss.
You were trying to fight for purity in every way. And that's how you explained it to
Yeah,
me.
hard swing.
And so you didn't want to bring anything confusing in your mind. And the way that you explained it to me was like, if we're going to kiss, like you're setting yourself and your body up for having sex. So why would we even, if we're not going to do that, then why would we even start and tempt that? So it was all in an effort to fight for
A strong
purity.
leap from kissing to sex. But for me, it was like, yes, if I start kissing and then we start moving past just kissing, that's going to be a whole new world for me to explore with you. And I don't know how to do that until we can actually just be fully free to do that. So we didn't even really kiss that last couple months.
Right.
So that's a
Going into
big
our
deal.
wedding.
Like you're going into a honeymoon, and it's like, as anyone that is a virgin would know, going into a honeymoon your honeymoons are
There's a lot of question marks.
a lot of question marks, and
for anybody.
and we have counseled a lot of people even in their own journeys and their honeymoons, and like what to expect and expectations and all that. And so that's a big piece of anyone's marriage, not just this story,
Right.
but how sex plays into it. And sex is a very, like we've talked about in previous episodes, it's very complicated in a lot of different ways. And so our complications might look different than other people's.
Sure.
But I do just want to acknowledge the fact that that's a complicated thing. Sex is a complicated thing. The discussion around sex, and then even in a married couple, like,
and to be able to normalize every couple's exploration of their own personal intimacy is unique.
Yeah.
And so we have our own unique struggles and journey.
Yeah. And I remember the week before, so catching back up, we're a week before the wedding, and I'm talking to a friend of mine who's a pastor, and I just loved his advice. He was like, all of us, no matter what our struggle or temptation is in life, again, our call when we're following Jesus is to deny yourself and pick up your cross and follow him daily. And so this was another way of me following Jesus. And when I framed it in that way of like, I can follow Jesus. Now you might think that sounds weird. Like, so walking with Jesus, you're denying yourself, and you're going to have sex with somebody who you don't necessarily feel like a lot of physical attraction to. How does that work? And I only can say it's a miracle of God. I wouldn't say anything else other than we'll get there in a minute, but it's a miracle of God how it does work. And so before we get there, let's talk about, we get to our wedding. We have this amazing wedding. It was incredible. We have all of our friends in one place, and a lot of people, not everybody in that moment, because we were still in the journey. Not everyone knew our story, but a lot of people knew the story in the room of us. And so, I mean, it was amazing. I mean, we had the best, we thought it was the best wedding, but everyone thinks their wedding is the best. So
we had so much fun, and it was such an awesome celebration. I think one of the coolest moments was when I was about to walk down the aisle, and we did a lot of things differently in our wedding. We just kind of decided at that point, especially with our story, like we want this to be, we don't want to feel any pressure to do anything that it doesn't feel natural to, or like doesn't feel like a great expression of who we are and what our journey has been. So we kind of had both of our families process down the aisle, and when it was about to be my turn, I had my dad with me, and like everybody stood up obviously for the bride, but everybody like erupted into applause.
Everyone started clapping,
and it was so cool. It was just like this beautiful like celebration among our community of how far we'd come and what the Lord had done. It was so obvious to everybody, no matter what measure of our story they knew, that the Lord had done a miracle, and we were all getting to witness it that day.
Yeah.
It was really fun.
It was incredible. Wedding was amazing. We go on our honeymoon, and that's between us, but we figured things out.
We figured things out, yeah. And I think it's important to say, not just that we figured things out. I think that like there's some elements, and obviously this is personal, and there's like a very appropriate level of privacy for this, but for anybody, I think that a lot more people than just struggle with same-sex attraction can relate to working out your sexuality in marriage, and how to connect that way. And it's, because everybody brings in their own past, their own
history,
experiences.
baggage.
Yes. So many things that contribute to that. So I think that is an important thing to acknowledge, that can normalize it for more people.
Yeah.
That yes, there were some very unique challenges, and and of course, I'm still hopeful, like everything's going to be okay, and obviously you had more concerns, and understandably, but I think that there are elements like when you love someone and when you have been through what we had already been through, when you have this kind of connection on such a spiritual, emotional level, that those things play into the physical.
Absolutely.
In such significant ways. So there's so much that you can't fully explain, but doesn't need to be explained.
Right.
And that's our personal journey.
Yeah. We haven't hit on this, but I just think, just take 1 second to say, we've talked about what I was laying down to get married was this desire was to what for a man was never going to be played out.
Yeah.
But for you gave up things marrying somebody with same-sex attraction too, and speak to that. What were the things that you were like laying on the altar as well that you knew?
I definitely knew at that time, and I think I've learned more about what I was giving up since we've gotten married. And I think that that's probably relatable to all kinds of people too in marriage. But I knew that it was going to be different than I expected in terms of like feeling like physically desired. And that was different for sure than what I had hoped for. I had a picture of what I thought my marriage would look like, and even like the physical elements of marriage would look like. And so that was something that I had to lay down. And that was hard. I mean, that was like, I had to work through and continue to have to work through what I want and what is reality. And that's important. And it's important to also remember, because what you said about what our friend told you and what it looks like for the believer to take up your cross, lay down your life, follow Jesus, that applies to me too. I'm laying down what I hoped for and what I thought was going to be the case. And that applies to everybody who gets married, whether you even know Jesus or not. I mean, we're all kind of laying down some expectation for a reality that's worth it. The reality that we share is worth whatever we chose to lay down.
Yeah. And even I think it's interesting too. When we were getting married, we specifically around same-sex attraction, and I want to talk about some other stuff, but specifically around that, when we were getting married in 2010, when we got married, I remember we had so many conversations around this will, for me, there'll be an element that will get harder as this topic becomes more acceptable in the future. So that topic and that discussion around it and the freedom of living that way has changed. And
for sure.
So it's, we're still holding on, and I'm committed forever with you. And that's our commitment to each other. But we knew what we were stepping into, that the days would get harder, and that this, which is why we're doing this now.
Yeah.
Because there is another option for people if you want to fight against it and walk with Jesus in this way that we've chosen. We are hopeful to be hope to those people in this day and age. So
it's interesting that you're saying that, because it makes me think about those earlier days of being married, how when we would have those conversations of, what will the future look like for this topic, this conversation, and I had a fear. I remember having a fear that I probably didn't talk about much, if at all, that like, what if it becomes even more accepted among Christians, among, the church? Like, what if it becomes even more accepted within the church and believers start saying like, I'm going to give into this lifestyle. Well, obviously that's where we find ourselves.
Yeah.
And I think I still had a nervousness then. I had a nervousness then that what if that happens? Will Jeff think, oh, now it's more accepted. Should I like just give over to this lifestyle? And that was a real fear for me in the early time of our marriage. But what has developed and strengthened, because now here we sit at the time of this recording, we've been married 14 years and we have 3 kids. And I know I have so much faith and trust and hope that our marriage is solid. Mm-hmm. And we face temptation and we've been through way more now since getting married. But I'm so certain that this is absolutely, that you're the best person for me, that I wouldn't want to be with anybody else.
Same. And it's one thing that to say about that is I think as the specifically when the church is silent on standing up for this choice that we've chosen, it almost in a way feels neglecting our choice to that we believe that Scripture would say that we would walk in this way, and man and woman would be married, and to deny our flesh. And so hopefully we will be a voice to be able to say, no, this is still how we see Scripture. This is still how we see life played out, and hold to truth with grace and compassion. And everyone's story is different. And we're not saying the ultimate goal is you get married. Like, we're not saying that. We're not saying anything in that. We're just trying to be a voice to the person who is choosing to fight against same-sex attraction or whatever your struggle is, and choose someone else that put someone else before themselves, and to follow God and to lay your life on the altar and go, my life is not for myself. It's for someone bigger than me. His name is Jesus, and he is greater than I could ever imagine. Yeah. And so I will see the miraculous when I walk with him, when my life is laid on the altar, when I wake up every day and surrender all of my flesh and my desires again on the altar. I'll get to see the miraculous happen, which we have. And so you even referenced our 3 kids. And I often say that my miracles in life, I can't ever say without crying, is you and our 3 kids, because there's just no reason that I should have kids or that I should be married in a logical way. Yeah. When I look back at my whole past in my life, there's just no reason, like, other than Jesus entered the story, and I met somebody who was Jesus to me, full of grace and compassion. And now I look at our kids and I tell them all the time, you're my 3 miracles. And now they are part of this story that one day when they're listening to this, my hope is that they would be listening to us and be like, man, my mom and dad like wanted to follow Jesus, and they surrendered a lot of their own desires and things for each other. But ultimately it's not for us. It's because we believe that God wants to do something in this marriage. Yes. And so because of that, they would see us as their parents, and they're invited in the story. And we always say, like, even stepping into this new thing that we're doing here with Open Spaces, that our kids are in the journey, and the Lord has given us visions of the future with them, getting to see us talk about this and share our story more publicly, but also to be, to watch our kids and believe that they're going to worship through this. They're going to be like, not embarrassed. That's something I've had to really fight through, is the embarrassment that my kids would feel over this topic. That the reality is that when I'm sitting here talking about this, that I'm thinking about the sports dads, that when my kids are playing sports and I'm standing there and thinking, did they listen to this podcast? Did their wives tell them something about me? I will have to fight that.
Yeah.
And I pray that my kids don't have to live in the ridicule of, just being fully honest. Oh, you're a gay dad and all this stuff. And, all the harsh things could be said to them. They're my number one priority. Mm-hmm. But I do believe it's all worth it for the hope that we can bring to people to say, hey, there's another way.
Yes.
There is a way that you can live in the light. And if you can live in the light and bring all of who you are and be fully known and be fully loved, that's the best place to live in.
Yes.
And our kids hopefully will get to experience that through watching the way that we live our life. And that's our goal.
And that's really what we're hopeful for. That's why we're doing this. Like you said, That's why we would fumble through trying to tell our story at all, because we want to help people understand that that living in the light is the best way to live. It's not the easy way to live.
Yeah.
But it's the best way to live, and it's the only way you can find yourself fully known. It's the only way that you can actually move towards freedom.
Yeah.
And especially if you want to know what it actually is like to follow Jesus. It
is not easy.
It's not easy, but it's the most loved you could ever be. And I think that that's, such a misconception when people want to just kind of hear, tiny snippets of a story or a position or a statement. The most loved you could ever be is living with Jesus and having a life with him. And we want to show people what our life has looked like as a result of that, as a result of the power of the gospel to change and to save and to set free.
Yeah.
That
it is so hard and it's not easy, but it's all worth it.
It's so worth it.
So that's our hope with what we're doing. We're opening our lives up in hope that other people will open their lives up.
And we want to talk about all manner of things that kind of fall under that umbrella. So we'll get to talk.
Yeah, it's not just same-sex attraction.
Right.
That's our story. So we opened it up that way. But we want to bring in a lot of other topics and talk to people. We do want to hit on same-sex attraction more.
Yeah.
We want to talk about, people will have questions about theology. You and I, just to be, so we're saying it, we have counseled people in this. We have walked with the person who has battled in this so long, the single person. We've walked with married couples we've walked
with people that have decided to just fully give themselves over to living in the lifestyle.
And we're still friends with them, and we still talk to them. And with all of the different scenarios, our hope is that we could speak into that topic with a lot of hope and freedom, but also other topics. And we will want to talk, like I said, about theology. I want to bring in our community and talk to our friends and what it was like to open up to them and how we walk with them now, and how we have great accountability in our lives and how that plays out. And then talking to your dad and your family about what this was like for them.
But also other people in our lives and that have also found more hope and freedom in their own version of
addiction, struggles. Yeah, and all of it. So I think it's important to note we knew that this was the first step of obedience, to sit down and do 5 episodes to share our story. And so that's what we did. We were like, we'll do that. And then we're going, okay, we want to create this collective at Open Spaces. The Open Spaces Collective.com is...
Yeah, so that's where you can join the community.
And be part of hey, I want to live in the light and I want to follow along with other people who are. So that's the future of that. We're excited that we're going to do Q&As after every season and talk about the things that people have sent us emails and say, hey, you said this, I'm curious about this. So send in your emails, because we want to be able to address those things in a Q&A after every season and have some interaction there. But there's a lot to come. We are not for sure how it's all going to play out.
And we don't think that we are the experts on any topic. We are the experts on our own story, but that's about it. And we just want to be a helpful voice. And we really also want to help promote more conversations among people.
Yeah.
And open people up to curiosity, open people up to how we can walk alongside of each other with love and grace, and not try to convince somebody to believe a certain thing, but be truthful, be loving, not sway away from our convictions, but also understand how we can still love each other.
Yeah. And we want to do it all in the light of the gospel, that Jesus is better and his way is always the best.
So we hope you will join us on that journey. Thanks so much for listening today. We just want to remind you that today's episode was the final installment of our intro series, where we share with you who we are, a little bit about our story, what brings us here, and start the conversations that will hopefully lead to more open spaces for you and others. We have more to come, so please stay tuned with us.
Thanks so much again, just for joining us, for being along in the saga of Jeff and Jourdan, to kind of crack the door open of who we are, and hope that would lead for you to live in freedom too, and believe for yourself that there's something greater and someone greater to live for. We just want to remind you, you can go to openspacespodcast.com and join the collective, be part of what we're doing, but also send your questions in, because we want to do Q&A will be next, and we want to do that with your questions. So send them to us. We'll sift through them and we'll figure out what we can actually answer with what we know, and try to be as helpful as possible. Ultimately, we just want to say we love you guys. Jeff and Jourdan are for you. We're believing with you. Thanks for joining Open Spaces Podcast.